Good morning, everyone. Now we will have a class on factoring, that is, factors affecting, or we can say sources of working capital finance. In that, the last part is factoring. So, what is factoring? A factor is a financial institution which offers services relating to the management and financing of debts arising from credit sales. While factoring is well established in developed countries like USA and UK, it has extended to a number of other countries in recent past, including India. Subsidiaries of 4 Indian banks provide factoring services. So, factoring is nothing but if you have sold goods on credit and you have customers who have not paid you money, they're going to pay at a later date. We usually call it as credit sales. So, these credit sales are nothing but our debtors, customers who will pay us later. Now, these debtors may take 3 months or 6 months time to pay, but we need the money immediately, or maybe we don't have time to follow up and get the money from them after 3 months or 6 months. So what we can do is we can sell our debtors to an agency called factoring, and in turn that agency will take the responsibility of managing our debtors. What do you mean by managing? They will do the follow up, they will call them on the due date, they will send them notices, they will try to recover our money from them. So the headache of recovery and managing their accounts is no more with us. Now, factoring was popular in UK and US earlier, but in India also in the recent past, around 5 to 10 years back, it has become popular, and in many major banks in India have taken up the factoring services. It is a method in which we convert the non-productive asset, that is debtors, which is lying idle for 3 months or 6 months, or receivables, which we will receive later, that's a non-productive asset, into a productive asset, that is cash. So we sell it to the factor and we receive cash in return. So we are selling our receivables and getting cash. And these factoring agencies are specialized in collection and administration of such debts. Okay, it is a unique financial innovation. It is both the financial as well as management support to the client. So if I am selling my debtors, then it is basically both financial and management support to me. The basic features of factoring are: the factor has the right to select the accounts. Now if I have 10 accounts of my debtors, out of the 10, which one will be selected and which I can sell will be decided by the factor. I cannot sell all the 10. How the factor will decide? It is based on the past experience of my customer. So suppose Kirti, I have an account with Kirti, and the factor has agreed to take the Kirti's account. So he has checked the background of Kirti, whether in the past she has made the payments on time or not, or she is a loyal customer, and factor will select only such kind of customers. So you cannot force all your debtors onto them. They will select a few and then they will provide you that service. The factors assume responsibility of collecting the debt or the accounts handled by it. For each account, the factor pays to the client at the end of the credit period or when the amount is received, whichever is earlier. So if 3 months is the period, the factor after 3 months will collect from that customer and pay it to the client. Or even if the customer pays early, it will go to the client early. Now this is one way of factoring. The other way is the factor can give you money in advance also. You need not wait for 3 months. You sell the customers accounts today to them, and today only around 70 to 80% of the face value of that customer's account will be given to you. So if Kirti has to pay me 2 lakh, almost 80% of 2 lakh I can get in advance from the factor, and after 3 months the factor will visit Kirti and collect the money from her. This is called as advance, which the factor gives, but it is not for free. The factor will charge interest on that advance because we are using his money, and the interest will be a little higher than the lending rate of any commercial bank. Now factoring are of two types: recourse and non-recourse factoring. In case of recourse factoring, the risk is borne by the client, that is, the risk is borne by me. I am selling the accounts. If one of the customers doesn't pay, so suppose if Kirti doesn't pay, the factor will come back to me and say, see, your client or your customer has not paid, so you have to pay on behalf of that. That is recourse basis. Whereas in case of non-recourse basis, the factor takes the risk. If Kirti doesn't pay, it is the problem of the factor. He has to collect it from her. He will not come back to me and ask me for anything. So these are two types. Which type you have entered into depends. If the risk is taken by the factor, the commission that you'll have to pay is little more because he is handling your risk. If it is to be borne by you, the commission paid by you will be little less. Besides the interest on advance against debt, the factor charges commission. So he will charge you two things. If you have taken money in advance, he will charge you interest on that, and he will charge commission, which is around 1 to 2% of the face value of the debt. Now that was all about factoring, the last part of the sources of working capital finance. So through factoring also you can get money for your working capital. You can sell your debtors or receivables to the factor, and he will in turn give you money which you can run or use it in your working capital. Now this part, bank finance for working capital, we have already discussed. So let's go to the securities required in bank finance. Now when you go and approach a bank for money, you won't get it without keeping any security. So there are different types of securities that the bank will ask you to keep. The very first is hypothecation. In case of hypothecation, the borrower is provided with working capital finance by the bank against the security of a movable property. So anything that can move from one place to other, that property you can keep it as security. The best example is stock or raw material. You can move raw material from one place to another. So on the raw material security, you will get a loan, or it can be a two-wheeler which can move from one place to another. So it's only on the movable property, and generally the inventories or stock. Now the borrower does not transfer the property to the bank. The raw material you need not give to the bank and take loan. Raw material will be with you, it will be in your possession, and you can use it also. But if you fail to pay, then the bank will come and take away all your raw materials, sell it in the market and recover their money. So you keep it as security. That means only the papers maybe can be kept there, but the usage of that asset can be done by you. That is the first type of security which you need to keep with the bank. The second is pledge. Under this agreement, the borrower is required to transfer the physical possession of the property offered as a security to the bank. Now here, unlike hypothecation, you cannot keep it with you. If you have kept raw materials as security, you need to deposit it with the banker. So it cannot remain with you. You need to transfer the physical possession to the bank. To obtain credit, the banker has a right of lien and can retain possession of goods pledged, unless payment of interest, principal, and any other expenses is made. So in this case, you can keep your two-wheeler or four-wheeler as security with the bank. It will remain with the bank. Keys will remain with the bank. When you repay the loan and the interest amount, you will get back your money, your vehicle. If you don't, then the bank will sell it and try to recover. So here it is, you have to give the physical possession of the property to the banker in case of pledge. In case of mortgage, it is a transfer of legal or equitable interest in a specific immovable property for the payment of debt. Now here it's not movable property, it is immovable property like land, building, heavy machineries which cannot be moved easily from one place to another, and you give the possession, that means the papers or the legal interest or legal transfer of those papers to the bank, and instead of that the bank will give you loan. In this case, the possession of the asset will remain with the borrower and the lender getting full legal title. So possession will be with us only, we are the borrowers, and the lender will get the title, that is, he will become the legal owner till I don't repay the loan. Borrower is called as the mortgager and the bank is called as the mortgagee, and the instrument of transfer is called as the mortgage deed. So when you transfer your property, legal authority of the property to the banker to get the loan, we call it as a mortgage deed. The next one is lien. In case of lien, it means that the lender has the right to retain property belonging to the borrower until he repays the credit. So any property that you have kept as security, in case of lien, the banker has the right to retain your property, keep it with them till you don't repay the loan. There are two types of lien, particular lien and general lien. Banks usually enjoy general lien. Particular lien is you tell one particular asset, my car I have kept as security. So only on the car banker has the right. General lien is your entire property is with the banker. He can sell anything from your property and get that particular money recovered, the loan which you are not able to pay. So usually bankers ask for general lien, because only car if they sell and they don't recover their money, then they'll go to the next asset of yours. Okay, so these are the four types of securities that you require to keep with the bank. Now let's move to the next part. The next part is also about bank loan only, how you will get money from bank. So this is Tandon committee recommendations. There was a committee, and it was led by Tandon, so it is called as Tandon committee recommendation. They told how to give working capital loan. So what are the rules and regulations a bank should follow before giving a working capital or a short term loan to a customer. So the very first thing is the customer should have a operating plan. What do you mean by operating plan? The borrower should indicate the likely demand for credit. For this purpose, he should draw the operating plan for the ensuing year and supply them to the banker. So suppose you are demanding 10 lakh rupees credit, how 10 lakh you need to explain in your operating plan. So how much raw material you will buy, what is the demand for your product, how are you going to supply, all the entire details you need to give. This procedure will facilitate the credit planning at the bank level. It will also help the banker in evaluating the borrower's credit need in a realistic manner and in the periodic follow up during the ensuing year. So when you give the plan, it becomes very easy for the banker to find the exact amount that you need, whether you are realistically you need 10 lakh or you are over exaggerating and asking more money, and it will also help them to follow up. Second, you need to do production based financing. So these are all the rules for the bankers. They have to check all this and then give a loan. The banker should finance only on the genuine production needs of the borrower. You may ask 10 lakh, out of which you may use 8 lakh for production and 2 lakh for some other purpose. So you are not eligible to get that 2 lakh rupees. Only genuine production needs will be financed for working capital. The borrower should maintain responsible level of inventory and receivable. So you have to have minimum, or a little more than the minimum level of inventory and receivable. You can't simply go on buying stock and compiling with bank's money. So a limit should be there on that. He should hold enough to carry on his target production. So if you're targeting 100,000 units, you should have enough raw material to meet the target, not more than that. Efficient management of resources should therefore be ensured to eliminate slow moving of flabby inventories, because most of the businesses take loans and they go on piling up on their raw material and they don't move. The raw production doesn't happen fast, and then the raw material gets deteriorated, it gets spoiled, and there's lots of wastage. So you have to decide, depending on your production target, how much raw material is required. Only on that much you will get the loan. So production based financing should be done, is what is the second guideline or rule given to the banker. The third guideline is partial bank financing. The banker cannot give you the entire money demanded by you. So if you have asked for 10 lakh, he will not give you full 10 lakh. The working capital need of the borrower cannot be entirely financed by the bank. The banker will finance only a reasonable part of it. For the remaining, the borrower should depend upon his own funds generated internally or externally. So they usually say you have to put the seed capital. Out of 10 lakh, around 2 3 lakh you put, the rest we will try to finance. So partially they are financing, not fully. Norms for inventory and receivable, these are not that important, so I'll just read it out. In the mid 1970s, the RBI accepted the norms for raw material and stock in progress finished goods and receivable that was suggested by Tandon committee for 15 major industries. These norms were based on companies finance studies made by RBI. These norms represent the maximum level of holding inventory and receivables in each period. So I'm not going through the details of those norms, but there are norms given by RBI to the banks as to how much of inventory and receivable in each period can be holded by the customer who is asking, the borrower who is asking for loan. Now these are lending norms. So how are you going to get the money? This is very very important, because we will be doing a few sums on this to understand these lending norms. So first is maximum permissible bank finance. So you have to understand how much money the bank can give you. So if you have asked for 10 lakh rupees, out of this how much maximum the bank can give you, what is the permissible limit? When we find that, we call it as MPBF, maximum permissible bank finance. Now there are three methods that are given to the banks to calculate the maximum permissible amount of loan that can be given to you. So the first method is 25% of working capital gap, the remaining 75% can be financed from bank borrowing. So I've given the formula there. 25% of the working capital gap should be put by the borrower. What is working capital gap? Current asset minus current liability. If you do, you will get the working capital. Whatever amount you get, 25% you have to put as a borrower and 75% will be given by the bank. So if you look at the formula, it is maximum permissible bank finance is equals to 75% of your current asset minus current liability will be given. So this current asset minus current liability is nothing but the working capital. So if you are asking for 10 lakh rupees, that means if you are saying your working capital is 10 lakh rupees, 25% of that, that is 7 lakh 50,000 will be given to you, and the rest 2 lakh 50,000 you have to manage on your own. Now current assets are as per the norms. Current liabilities, non-bank current liabilities like trade credit and provision should be taken. Okay, so when we do sums, I'll tell you what does this non-bank mean. In case of, and the minimum current ratio should be 1:1 in the first method. When you go to second method, look at the formula how it has changed. In the first method, the formula was 75% of current asset minus current liability. So current asset minus current liability was in the bracket. So first you had to find working capital, then multiply with 75. In the second case, they are saying we will give you 75% of current assets. So first you find 75% of current assets, and from that you minus current liability. So suppose your current assets are 10 lakh rupees. So 75% of your current asset will be 7 lakh 50,000. So from that 7 lakh 50,000 you minus your current liabilities. Let's assume your current liabilities are 2 lakh. So you will get a loan of 5 lakh 50,000 only. So here first we calculate 75% of this amount, that is the current asset, and then whatever I get from that I minus the current liabilities. Second method says your current ratio should be 1.3:1. And in case of the third method, the formula is again changed. There's something called as CCA, which is nothing but the core current assets that has got added up here. So core current assets are nothing but the permanent component of working capital. Even if you produce or you don't produce, you still need to maintain some amount of working capital. We call it as core current assets. Why do we need to maintain? Because even if you're not producing, your basic lighting expenses you have to pay, factory maintenance expenses you have to pay. So that is the reason you need to have a minimum level of core current assets, that is permanent amount of working capital always in your firm. So according to the third method, first from the current assets you minus the core current assets. Whatever amount you get, 75% of that you have to calculate. From that you have to minus current liabilities to get the maximum permissible bank finance. On all the three methods I'll be doing problems in my next session, so there you will understand the application of the formula in a much better manner. So this was about the three methods of maximum permissible bank finance, that is the lending norms. So till here we spoke about how basically the working capital finance is done through banking. Now, what is working capital finance? There are two types, long term and short term. In case of long term finance, you can take money from share capital, preference and debentures, reserves and surplus for your working capital need. In case of short term finance, it is for less than 1 year period and it includes public deposit, commercial papers, factoring, and all this. So here if you see, I also discussed something called as rights debentures as one of the source of working capital finance. So that we need to consider. Now there are three approaches for finding working capital finance, that is how much money we should borrow: matching, conservative and aggressive. I have already discussed conservative and aggressive in the beginning of the class, if you remember. For conservative we also called it as flexible, and for aggressive we also called it as restrictive. Okay, so these three. And what is matching? Matching is basically how much current assets are there, same amount of current liabilities you should have. So you are basically matching, nor you are keeping more current assets nor you are keeping less current assets. If your liabilities are 1 lakh, then you should have 1 lakh current asset. In real life now matching is little difficult because you will never be knowing when the liabilities will increase or decrease. So usually people go for conservative or aggressive, but you know that these two are also not right. We have to have a optimum working capital, which I had explained you with the graph. If you remember, we went through this graph. Just show you the graph. Yeah. This graph told us how to find the optimum level of current assets. Here is the optimum level, right? And before that we discussed the flexible and the restrictive policy, which is nothing but this is called as a very aggressive policy, restrictive, and this is called as very conservative policy, because here the owner is very conservative, he doesn't want to take risk, and here he is ready to take risk. So I've already explained you this in my previous session. Okay, so let's go back to the next slides. So next is the working capital leverage. On this also we will do two or three sums, so you need to remember this formula for it. What is working capital leverage? The term working capital leverage refers to the impact of working capital on company's profitability. Now, if I increase my working capital, what will happen to my profit? If I decrease my working capital, what will happen to my profit? When I study this, I am studying the impact of working capital on my profit, which is called as working capital leverage. Higher level of investment in current assets than is actually required means increase in the cost of interest charges on the short term loans and working capital finance raised from banks, etc., and will result in lower return on capital employed. So more working capital, you will have less profit. Let's understand this. I will write it here below. What I'm trying to say is, if you have more working capital, you will have less return. Why is this happening? Because if I borrow more, if I have more current assets better than working capital, let's say current assets, if I have more current assets, I will need more money, I will borrow it from banks, and I'll have to pay huge interest. When I pay more interest, it will have a negative impact on my profit, so my returns are reducing. And if you have less investment in current assets, if you invest little, then you will pay lesser interest, and it will in turn lead to more return or more profit. That is the reason why when certain companies have negative working capital also, still their profits are high, because they are saving on their interest charges on the short term loans and all that, and it is affecting the profitability positively. So when you check the impact or the responsiveness of working capital on the return on capital employed, we call it as working capital leverage, and this is the formula that we will use, that is current asset divided by total asset minus change in current asset. So this is current assets, total assets, and change in current assets. So we'll understand them in the next session while doing the problems. The next part is factors affecting working capital. We've already done it in the first semester. I am just repeating a few important factors. There are more than this, and you already have the notes, so you could refer that. The very first factor is nature of business. If you are a manufacturing concern, you will require more working capital compared to a service oriented business. If you are a big business, you will require more working capital compared to a smaller one, that is a startup or a foundry will require little less working capital. So this is how working capital is decided on the basis of which business you have. Then seasonality of operations. If your products are seasonal, during the off seasons you will require less working capital, and during the peak seasons you will require more working capital, like umbrellas, raincoats. During the rainy season the demand is too high for that. Ice creams, during summer season the demand for ice creams is high. So during the peak season you will have to spend more on working capital, and during the off season the working capital can be low. Production policy, how are you producing also depends on your working capital. If you have a continuous production policy, whether peak or slow down, it doesn't matter, every month I will produce 1000 units, in that case you will have a consistent working capital required. It will not move up and down, every month you will need the same amount. But if your production policy is not continuous, you produce only when there is demand and there is peak season, then more the demand, more we will produce and more will be the working capital required. The next is the market conditions. If the market, in case of market conditions, if your competitor is trying to grab a big order which you want, and you have to produce in advance or buy huge amount of raw material and keep for that order, in that case, to meet the competition, you will need more working capital. So that's how market conditions, and it also depends on the price of the raw material. The next is condition of supply. If you're getting the raw materials on regular basis, you need not buy much and pile it up. But if the supply is not regular and it is interrupted, then you don't want to fall short during your production, so you will buy more in advance and you will keep it. It is like the demand for onion. If the demand is more, in that case the prices will increase, and you fear further price increase and you buy more and stock it up. But if the supply is regular, there's no interruption in the supply, then you will not pile it up. Whatever is the market price, at that you will buy and consume whenever you need. So this is how it works. So this was the theory of the first unit. Now in my next session we'll do problems on maximum permissible bank finance and working capital leverage. Thank you.